The silence in the grand convocation of sovereigns was absolute, a held breath across 11 species, all of them watching the great holographic display where Earth rotated in crystalline detail. Supreme Archon Veth stood at the apex of the amphitheater, his limbs folded in the posture of absolute dominion, all seven eyes fixed upon the blue world that struggled beneath the weight of their collective judgment. The vermin have been contained, Veth intoned, his voice resonating through the chamber like the tolling of a funeral bell. Their so-called warp drives have been dismantled, their ships scuttled, their scientists interned. From this day forward, humanity shall remain grounded, bound to their single system, their single world, until such time as they prove themselves worthy of the stars. Below the amphitheater, in the gallery of witness, the human delegation stood in chains. Dr. Elena Vasquez, former director of the European Space Agency, wore her restraints like armor, her jaw clenched so tight the muscles in her neck stood like cables. Beside her, three other human representatives, scientists, diplomats, leaders, stood with the hollow eyes of those who had just watched their species be sentenced to a cage. Veth descended from his throne platform, his steps slow, deliberate, designed to maximize the terror of anticipation. He stopped before Dr. Vasquez, his elongated face tilting to study her the way one might study an insect pinned to a board. "You showed promise, little thing," he said, his translator device rendering his words into crude English. "Your species built fire. Your species split the atom. You reached for the stars with such passion." One of his four upper limbs gestured dismissively. But passion is not capability. Ambition is not right. The galaxy belongs to the sovereignty, not to the hungry little things that scuttle in the dark. Dr. Vasquez said nothing, but her eyes, those dark, human eyes, held something that made even Veth pause. Something that flickered there like a coal, still burning beneath the ash. "You are wondering if your species will survive?" the Archon said, almost gently. "Do not worry. You will. We have uses for controlled populations. Your world will become a farm. Your children will become workers, servants, pets. Perhaps in 10,000 years, your lineage may be trusted with fire again." He turned away. "Take them away. Confine them to their world. Seal their system. Let them rot in the light of their single sun." As the human delegation was dragged from the chamber, Dr. Vasquez spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it stopped Veth mid-stride. "You've made a mistake." The Archon turned, his expression somewhere between amusement and curiosity. "Oh, you looked at us," Dr. Vasquez said, "and you saw what you wanted to see. You saw the frightened mammal, the primitive, the pet." Her lips curled into something that was almost a smile. "You never looked at what we were building." Veth's amusement vanished. "What do you mean?" But the human was already being pulled away, and her final words drifted back through the chamber like a curse. "You should have checked the other vaults." 12 years later, Commander Alexis Laang stood in the command center of the Indomitable, her hands clasped behind her back, her spine as straight as a blade. The lights aboard the flagship were dimmed to battle red, casting long shadows across the faces of the crew that filled every station aboard the enormous warship. But it wasn't the Indomitable that had stolen her breath, that IT was what waited outside. Through the great viewports of the command deck, past the shields that hummed with barely contained energy, the void of space stretched infinite and cold. But within that void, arranged in a formation that defied easy comprehension, the ships of Project Genesis hung in perfect silence. Point 17 dreadnoughts, 42 cruisers, over 100 support vessels, and at the center of the formation, like a sleeping god waiting to awaken, the Indomitable herself, humanity's first true stellar warship, built not in any shipyard, but carved from the heart of asteroid 2031 X7, the barren rock that had been quietly relocated to the far side of the Oort cloud 2 decades ago, while the Sovereignty watched Earth's every space launch with smug satisfaction. The Indomitable was 3 kilometers of layered diamond steel armor. Fusion drives the size of city blocks, and weapons that the galaxy had never dreamed of. Her hull was studded with mass driver turrets that could accelerate a tungsten rod to a significant fraction of light speed. Kinetic killers that ignored energy shields entirely, striking with the primal force of a meteor strike. Her ventral bays held 64 singularity torpedoes, each one a contained micro black hole that could swallow a cruiser hull. In her stealth systems, her ghost cloaks rendered her invisible to every sensor the Sovereignty possessed. But it was her captain that made her truly dangerous. Commander Laang had been 12 years old when the Sovereignty had come. She remembered watching the convocation on her mother's tablet, seeing the Archon pronounce humanity's doom, seeing her father weep for the first and only time in his life. She remembered the ships that came to disable humanity's warp program, the casual cruelty of the alien engineers as they dismantled humanity's dreams with surgical precision. She remembered what they said: "You are nothing. You will always be nothing." And she remembered the secret facility beneath the ice of Europa, where her father had taken her one night, a man she had thought was just a simple engineer, showing her the first hull plate of what would become the Indomitable, whispering to her, "They think they've won, but we build, we hide, we wait. And one day, daughter, we will show them what humanity really is." That day was today. "All ships report ready, Commander," her executive officer, Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb, announced. His voice was steady, but Long could see the tremor in his hands. He was 26 years old. He had been born in the vaults, in the hidden shipyards, in the shadow of the fleet. He had never seen an alien, but he had been trained his entire life for this moment. Long turned to face the main display, where the stellar cartography showed their destination, the Meridian System, home of the Sovereignty, seat of the Grand Convocation, the place where humanity had been humiliated, sentenced, caged. "Helm," she said. "Plot jump coordinates. All hands, prepare for faster-than-light transit. Engage on my mark." The silence that followed was the silence of a predator about to spring. Jump into Meridian mark was not the stars subtle. Vanished. It could not be. The Sovereignty's detection systems were sophisticated, designed to catch any faster-than-light entry into their core systems. But humanity had not spent 12 years building a secret fleet to be subtle. They had built it to be devastating. The Indomitable emerged from FDL space 300,000 kilometers from the convocation station, and the ship's systems registered over 9,000 distinct contacts in the first 3 seconds. Sovereignty warships, patrol vessels, station defense platforms, all of them frozen in the sudden violence of the moment. The second, the Indomitable opened fire. .16 mass driver rounds accelerated toward the nearest Sovereignty cruiser at 30% the speed of light. The rounds did not explode. They punished, carrying kinetic energy that no shield could absorb because energy shields were designed to stop energy, not matter. The first round struck the cruiser's forward shields and punched through like a fist through wet paper. The second struck the hull. The third struck the engineering section. The Sovereignty cruiser vessel died in 4 seconds, its fusion core going critical, its remains spreading across the void in a cloud of superheated debris. "Report," Commander Long ordered, her voice as cold as the space outside. "All batteries firing. 12 targets acquired. The enemy is attempting to cluster. Looks like they're trying to form a defensive line." Webb paused, his eyes widening. "Commander, we're detecting other FDL signatures. They just jumped in. It's the 7th Fleet. No, it's the 9th Fleet. Commander, they're bringing in reinforcements." Long almost smiled. "Good. Let them come. Signal the fleet. Full offensive pattern alpha. I want every ship engaging within 30 seconds." The orders went out, and the void of Meridian became a slaughterhouse. Human ships emerged from their ghost cloaks in 100 different locations, their mass drivers firing in coordinated volleys that turned Sovereignty warships into expanding clouds of debris. The alien defenders, trained for centuries on the assumption that no enemy could challenge them in their home system, had no protocols for this. They had no counter. Their energy shields, designed to repel plasma weapons and missiles, were useless against the primal, brutal simplicity of a tungsten rod moving at relativistic speeds on the bridge of the Indomitable. Commander Long watched the slaughter unfold with neither satisfaction nor cruelty. This was not vengeance. This was necessity. The sovereignty had made their choice 12 years ago. They had decided that humanity would live in chains, serve as cattle, rot in the light of a single sun. They had made that choice with absolute confidence, with the absolute certainty that humanity could never, would never, pose a threat. They had been wrong. "Commander," Webb said, his voice tight. "We're receiving a transmission from the convocation station. It's Veth. He wants to speak to you." Laang turned. "Put him through." The main display flickered, and the image of Supreme Archon Veth appeared, though he looked nothing like the confident ruler who had sentenced humanity to bondage. His limbs were trembling. 2 of his 7 eyes were focused on the display showing the destruction of his fleet, and the other 5 were fixed on Alexis Laang with an expression she had never seen on an alien face before. Fear. "You," Veth breathed. "You're the one who leads this abomination?" "I am Commander Alexis Laang of the Indomitable," she said, "flagship of the Genesis fleet. And you, Supreme Archon, are now in a position to understand something." What are you?" The Archon's voice cracked. "What have you become?" Laang took a step forward, her eyes boring into his with the cold weight of 12 years of preparation, 12 years of silence, 12 years of watching her species be humiliated and degraded and told it would never amount to anything. "You looked at us," she said, her voice a whisper that somehow carried through the void between them. "And you saw vermin. You saw something small, something weak, something that could be contained, controlled, farmed." She paused. "You saw what you wanted to see. You saw what you expected to see. Because that is what hubris does, Archon. It blinds you to reality. It convinces you that your enemies are less than they are, that your power is eternal, that no one could ever challenge the Jushu you've built." She leaned closer to the camera, and her voice dropped to something almost gentle, a gentleness that was somehow more terrifying than her guns. "But we are not what you thought. We are not vermin. We are humans. We are the species that looked at fire and did not run. We are the species that looked at the atom and learned to split it. We are the species that was told we could not have the stars and went and built our own. We built them in secret. We built them in silence. We built them while you watched our surface and believed you had one." She straightened, and her voice hardened. "You made a fatal mistake, Archon. You tried to cage humanity. You tried to make us serve. You told us we would rot in the light of our single sun." She smiled, a cold, terrible smile. "But you forgot that humans don't rot. We burn." The transmission cut. The battle for Meridian lasted 11 hours. By the end, the 7th Fleet was debris. The 9th Fleet was scattered. The convocation station was a smoking ruin, its orbital defenses neutralized, its command structure paralyzed. But the war was not over. It would never be that simple in the final hour, as the Indomitable moved in to capture the remnants of the sovereignty government. Veth made his last play. The Archon, his fleet destroyed, his power crumbling, triggered a device that had been hidden on the convocation station for centuries. A dead man's switch connected to his stellar destabilization field. In simple terms, he was going to blow up the Meridian star. The explosion would consume the entire system. Every human ship, every surviving alien, every planet, every moon, every rock. A final, spiteful act of destruction that would deny humanity their victory even as it killed billions. Commander Laang had seconds to decide. "Helm, get us out of here," Webb shouted. "All hands, prepare for no." Laang's voice cut through the chaos. "We don't have time to clear the blast radius. Even at FDL, we can't outrun a stellar event that size." She turned to the communications officer. "Give me a channel to the station. Specifically, to Veth's position." Laang spoke quickly, her words sharp and precise. "Archon Veth, I know you can hear me. You have triggered a dead man's switch, and in approximately 6 minutes, this star is going to detonate. Every living thing in this system will die. Your people, my people, everyone. Is that what you want?" The response came in a voice cracked with madness. "If I cannot have victory, I will have vengeance. You have destroyed everything I built, everything my ancestors built. I would rather see the galaxy burn than let vermin claim it." Laang closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed in her expression, a softening, almost a sadness. Archon, she said, I understand you. I understand what it means to lose everything, to see your world crumble, to be told that everything you fought for is nothing. I felt that 12 years ago, when your people looked at my species and saw only things to be discarded. She paused, but I did not become what I am by seeking to burn the galaxy. I became this by believing that humanity was worth saving, worth building for, worth fighting for. She looked at her crew, young men and women who had given their lives to this fleet, who had believed in a future that could be better than the past. I'm going to send a boarding party to your station. We're going to reach you, and we're going to disarm that device. It will cost lives, human lives, probably. Maybe even my own. She met Veth's eyes through the screen. You think we're vermin. You think we're animals. But animals don't do this. Animals don't sacrifice themselves for strangers. Animals don't look at their enemy and choose mercy over vengeance. Veth said nothing. His face was unreadable. This is what makes us human, Archon, Laang said. This is what you never understood. We are not what you see. We are not what you expect. We are what we choose to be. And today we choose to save you, your people, your system, your legacy, because we are better than what you made us. The channel went dead. The boarding action was brutal. Commander Laang led it personally, leading a team of 40 hand-picked soldiers through the damaged corridors of the convocation station, fighting through collapsing bulkheads and failing life support systems to reach the chamber, where Veth sat surrounded by his dying government. They reached the chamber with 11 minutes to spare. The Archon looked at the humans who had come for him, bloodied, exhausted, burning with a drive he could not comprehend. He looked at Commander Laang, who stood at the front of the team, her sidearm drawn, her expression unreadable. You could have let me die, he said. You could have escaped. Why? Laang holstered her sidearm. Because we're not what you think we are. Because the galaxy doesn't need another species burning. Because someone has to be the first to stop the cycle. She stepped forward, and her voice dropped. Because humanity didn't come here to conquer. We came here to prove that we could be trusted with the stars. And you can't prove that by murdering billions. Veth stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and entered the disarm codes into the device at his side. The stellar destabilization field flickered, failed, and died. The star held in the aftermath as the Genesis fleet began the long process of securing the Meridian system. Supreme Archon Veth was taken into custody. He would face a tribunal, not of humans, but of the combined species of the former sovereignty, judged by laws humanity had helped draft in those frantic months of negotiation following the battle. Commander Alexis Laang stood on the observation deck of the Indomitable, watching the stars turn slowly outside the viewport. Behind her, Lieutenant Colonel Webb approached, his uniform torn, his face bruised, but his eyes bright. Commander, he said, the Council of Remaining Sovereigns has voted. They're going to open the FDL lanes. Every species, not just us. They're calling it the Genesis Accords. Laang didn't turn. And Veth. The tribunal gave him a choice. Exile or service. He chose service. He's asking to be assigned to the relief fleet. The one that's being sent to help the colonies he nearly destroyed. Laang was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, she smiled. Not a cold smile this time, but something genuine. Something warm. Good, she said. That's good. Webb hesitated. Commander, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why did you do it? Why did you risk everything? The fleet, your life, all of it, to save him. He was going to kill us. He wanted to kill us. Laang turned to face him, and her eyes were soft. Not the cold, hard eyes of a warrior, but something deeper. Something older. Because that's what humanity does, she said quietly. We don't destroy our enemies. We change them. We show them what they could be if they stopped being afraid. If they stopped being cruel. She looked back at the stars. The galaxy thinks we're monsters. They think the Genesis fleet is a weapon, a threat, a warning. But that's not what we are. We're a promise. A promise that the universe doesn't have to be what it's always been. That even the smallest, weakest, most insignificant species can rise up and change everything. She placed her hand on the viewport, her palm flat against the cold glass. They called us vermin, Marcus. They said we'd never amount to anything. They said we would rot in the light of our single sun. She smiled, but we didn't rot. We became. And now the whole galaxy is watching, waiting to see what we'll do next. She turned and walked toward the door, her steps steady, her back straight, the weight of a million futures resting on her shoulders. And you can tell them, she said, pausing at the threshold, that humanity is just getting started.